what is it on the so you two differ on the Israel issue?
Completely. Like we couldn't be more far apart if we tried.
What is her stance?
Oh, she is Zionist to the core. She is a Zionist to the core. Whether or not it's ideological or AIPAC induced, I don't know. And to be honest, I really don't care why. But I can probably surmise that she and I were raised pretty similarly on that. We're both Ashkenazi Jews raised in the United States, and we were raised, and in general, in this country, to be very anti-Arab. We are raised to think that Arabs are lesser, less civilized, dirty, and want to kill us. That is brainwashed into us from a very young age, and it's absurd. And it's taken me the better part of 10 years to deprogram myself. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so now I feel like this might be the hill that I die on. I have a lot of regret. I was used as a tool in ethnic cleansing when I was in Israel. I was there as a teenager. They take groups over there all the time on mass propaganda tours. I was there on a program called Alexander Muss High School in Israel. And we lived there in dorms for 6 weeks. And you study and go visit the places. And all the while is constant Zionist brainwashing and propagandizing. And I've realized that where they were taking us was to places that we weren't supposed to be. And we, of course, thought it was so cool because you're traveling with an armed guard and he's got this big machine gun and we're in high school and oh, how cool, we have our own armed guard. But you really have to wonder who uses human shields when you're sending teenagers somewhere where you think they need an assault rifle to protect them. So clearly we were places we weren't supposed to be. And I also know that they have us planting trees in parts of East Jerusalem. Well, now it might not be that, but that was where we were planting. And now I know what I was doing. And at the time I had no idea what I was doing. So I have a lot of like a personal atonement in my part in ethnic cleansing, but that's why this will be the hill that I now have to die on. And this woman sits there and has our entire Congress sign a resolution that says that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and stood on the steps of our Capitol and actually said that if somebody doesn't support that, they have no soul. Now, personally, I believe that if anybody is an expert on the soul list, it is Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. So, kudos to her on knowing that. But the scariest part, Kim, is that other than a handful of people, they all signed that. So in other words, if I walk into Congress with enough money and say 2 + 2 is 5, they'll sign that too. And that has put me over the edge. I will spend every breath I have telling people that Zionism and Judaism are completely different things. In fact, Zionism is anti-Semitic, and as a program has been using the Jews forever. So the Jews, like me and my great-grandmother and all the people in my family that I am furious on behalf of because they died before knowing the truth, who spent their lives and their money giving to Israel. Like their last dying breath was, Israel, next year in Jerusalem. Like everything was about Israel. And now I know they were all lied to. Yeah. I have levels of rage that I haven't had ever since October 7th. And I am just like, I am done. I am done. And I'm already getting threats and I'm already getting phone calls. And I know AIPAC is going to bring it. Bring it. I am so done with their bullshit. I am sick and tired of people being bullied by AIPAC. What if we had, everybody think about this. What if we had the American-Russian Political Affairs Committee? Yeah. And what if the American-Russian Political Affairs Committee said, we're going to spend $100 million getting rid of incumbents? Do you think that the Democrats would be cool with that?
Right. Yeah, we're going to get rid of pro-Ukraine incumbents. We're going to spend all of our money on this, which AIPAC is now spending record levels of money trying to, which is interesting. It's like all this money could go to so many other good causes, but instead what they're doing is they want to eradicate anybody that they think is a threat to Israel. And it is insane that it's an American what does AIPAC stand for? So it's American Israel
Political Affairs Committee.
Yeah, could you imagine? Or if it was China, the American China, right? Anybody anti-China, they're going to primary and spend a bunch of money on.
Well, people should question very much, and this is a huge thing. Why don't the lobbyists from AIPAC have to register as foreign agents when every other country's lobbyists do?
Right. Right. Yeah. Especially when it's because they put American in there. So if you put American Israel, it's okay.
But it shouldn't be. And actually, the way
Right.
that they really they launder it, because as long as the money is coming from stateside, it technically that's how it works. But yet you're still lobbying on behalf of a foreign government.
Right. Right.
So to me, the fact that the money comes from this country is irrelevant. What if you had a whole bunch of local Chinese people get together? Would we again be in favor of them lobbying on behalf of China just because their money is American?
Right.
And again, I have nothing against the Chinese. Like literally, I am all for the Chinese and the Russians. I don't want any, but I'm just pointing out the complete
Right. The hypocrisy of this. Sure.
Yeah. I have no aim against the Chinese. Love the Chinese.
Yeah, I think that, well, but I don't want, no matter how I feel about any country in the world, I don't want any foreign lobbying to that level. I think a foreign dignitary, of course, foreign dignitaries can come over and plead with our government about whatever is affecting their countries. But that would be obvious, right? They're obviously the foreign dignitaries that are assigned to come to the United States to plead their case, to try to get lawmakers to, but not with money. It would have to be with reasons, with arguments, with logic, with you know, whatever else they've got, like, hey, we could do trade deals, like however they want to negotiate.
Now you're talking crazy because you're bringing reason into the mix. Actually, it's funny because that's my position on all lobbying. Actually, people want to get rid of lobbyists. I actually went to law school to be a lobbyist. I have no problem with lobbyists. People, it's the actual ultimate form of democracy.
Sure,
it's the corporate lobbyists and the money that's the problem. And when we don't include nuance, it's a problem. If I'm sitting in Congress and there's some bill that comes up about agriculture, okay, I don't know that. Like, you rely on experts in those fields, and those experts tend to represent the people of that industry, whatever that industry is. We need those voices in Congress. We need lobbyists to inform people what's what. The problem is the money.
Yeah.
But, you know, think about it. Like back in the day, the farmers of the Grange, back in, you know, the Midwest, it's like that was their lobbying group because everybody can't go and talk to their congressperson. So you need lobbying.
Yeah.
And so it bothers me when we try to throw the whole thing out. Oh, lobbyists. I'm like, no.
It's the money, right?
It's the money, because I went to law school dreaming that I was going to be a lobbyist for like Barry Scheck and the Innocence Project. Like that was my, you know, dream job. But so it would never have been about the money. So I think people need to be very clear. It's gotten very contorted and twisted like everything else we do, but lobbying in and of itself is the ultimate form of democracy.
Yeah, it's pleading your case. It's informing and pleading your case.
Correct.
I agree with you. Whenever people talk about getting rid of lobbying, and maybe even I've said it in that way because right now it's synonymous with the money, right?
Correct.
So we say, oh, we got to get rid of the lobbies because the lobbies are the money. But really, we do have to separate that out. And it's not, lobbying as an act is totally fine. And even organizations going and talking to their congressperson and saying, hey, we're from XYZ, you know, we believe this, and here's our pamphlet. This is what we want to educate you on the truth of what the impact is of XYZ thing, right? That needs to happen because our congresspeople don't know. They get elected and then they don't, there's a myriad of issues. Yeah. There's no way that they would know, and they should hear both sides out.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens. What happens is they just collect whoever can donate to their campaign the most amount of money is the one that they end up siding with. And that's what we've seen with AIPAC, which is and I'm with you on that. Swap out Israel with China. People would go nuts if they swapped that out with China. Would be absolutely furious. But it's okay for whatever reason because it's Israel. And I think that's because Israel has been well ahead of the game on that for decades and decades. I mean, even when Israel started as a country in 1948, that country received more American donation dollars than any other cause ever. I mean, they received a boatload of American money that went over to that foreign country.
A lot of that was coming from people like my family who were working class, busting their asses. Like my papi was a mailman. My grandmother worked in a hair salon. Like working class people that were sending their money for Israel. Okay. So that, and like the people that are now doing it, it's not that. Now it's a very much a class divide. There is a huge divide in the Zionism, and it is class. You see the people that are generally standing up for Israel are wealthy. They're the wealthy Jews.
What do you consider wealthy?
Somebody that doesn't have to work for a living.
Okay. Because I know a lot of, I mean, I live in a Jewish neighborhood. I live in an Israeli immigrant neighborhood, actually.
That's a whole different story. Israelis and Jews is a completely different thing.
Well, it's a mixed area, of course, but there are a lot of Israelis where I live, a lot. And, but there's also a lot of just Russian Jews or Ukrainian, you know, like Russian Jews live around here, a lot of them as well. And I will say that, I mean, I talk, my neighbors are all Jewish, and I talk to them, and they are all still pretty pro-Israel, and they're not, you know, they have to work. I mean, they're.
Yes, it's true, but the degree at which they're willing to fight for it, donate to it, and deal, like, it's like you'll have Jews in that category that, yeah, they'll still say they stand by Israel, but they're not the ones that are pushing AIPAC. They're not the ones that are really driving the narrative. They're more just like, that's just all they know.
That's all they know,
that are really behind this are the real moneyed interests, Jewish and Christian. And again, very clearly, people need to know there are more Christian Zionists in this country than there are Jews in the world.
Yeah.
So Zionism and Judaism are not the same, not even a little. So it's very frustrating. And my goal is to live in a world post-Zionism. Judaism's been around long before it, and it will be around long after it. Because like, I feel very proud to be Jewish. Like that to me is very cool, because I know where my people came from and the suffering, and my great-grandparents left Russia with their businesses on fire and the pogroms. And so it's like, I have a lot of pride in where I'm from and how my people, my ancestors, did for us and the next generations. Like, I have a lot of pride in that. And that is actually part of my immense anger about how they were manipulated and duped and lied to about an ethno-Zionist white supremacist state that they were told had no people there. There was nobody there. The Arabs just hate us because we're Jewish. They're just trying to take away our way of life. They just hate us because we're Jewish. No, that's not at all why, but that's what we thought. And so, no, my family like had no clue.
Let's get into what you were taught when you were raised. This is interesting. What were you so you're taught Israel is what?
Israel is not only the nation state of the Jewish people. I mean, that obviously it's like that's ingrained, but it is necessary for our safety and survival.
Right.
So what you're dealing with here, and we all know, like, I don't know, people know, just quick recap. Zionism started in the late 1800s, made its way over. I'm kind of condensing.
Well, radical Zion. I mean, I think the concept of Zionism had been around even prior to that, but it wasn't the radical Zionism, the movement. Yeah.
Actually find a place. Okay. Like that started somewhere in the late 1800s. But the problem with it is that it was really never about helping the Jews. It was really more about originally Jews feeling alienated and persecuted and feeling that almost sort of the idea is that Jews almost encompassed what they were taught about themselves. Like, we are not considered real Europeans. We are not white. We are not this. And in order for us to be taken seriously as a people, we need to have our own land, our own language, like this whole sort of setup of stuff in order to have a voice at the table and in order to have any strength.
I think also it's important for people to understand the context of the time.
Yes.
At that time, when Zionism really cropped up with Theodor Herzl and then the subsequent leaders who ended up taking the mantle with Zionism, nationalism, ethno-nationalism was a big idea, and it was a popular and accepted idea at that time. That's at the same time and in the same region of the world. It all came from that. What would be Austria, Ukraine, Russia, Germany.
Yes.
That section of the world, that thinking became really, really popular. And that's where we even see the rise of like Stepan Bandera for the Banderites in Ukraine, where they came up with this real, like, we want a nationalist movement of just people who speak Ukrainian to be, and anybody else has got to get out. In Germany, we saw the rise of that ideology as well. It was actually not only it was an accepted and popular political ideology to think people should be separated by their kind.
Yes.
And they should live amongst and flourish together with the common language and the common people and the common beliefs. And so that is, Zionism didn't crop up out of, it cropped up at the same time as all these others. We've now learned, however, like with Nazism and that sort of that ethno-nationalism idea that, of course, was defeated. We now have learned that it's a dangerous idea, because what you end up doing, you start ethnically cleansing people. And then now
you way to have an ethno state.
Right, that's the only way. If you're going to
ethno cleanse.
Well, unless you're going to build it literally on a piece of land where nobody lives, right? Then you can have your own spot. You pop up, you flourish, whatever. I don't have any issue with that in particular.
They should have given them a part of Germany. And
that's what actually.
And truthfully, and again, I'm not into assigning ethno states at all, but
right.
In terms of being amongst their own kind, would have been staying with the white people in Europe. Okay, that's the point.
In an enclave or something that was carved out, I suppose, but really the entire idea, what we now know is that the entire idea is a wrong idea, to say this group of people needs to live amongst themselves in an ethno state, and that's what's going to be best. That is what Nazism believed. That is what the Banderites believed. That is what Zionism believes. There's other ethno-nationalist groups that cropped up also around that same time in that part of the world. And that idea has caused problems time and time and time again. But for whatever reason, the others get condemned. I mean, in Ukraine, they're kind of having a reckoning with that right now. But because Russia's come in and said, we're not allowing this. You can't have this ideology anymore. But for Israel, we haven't really had that reckoning until now. I feel like it's becoming more and more. People are now saying more and more. Even myself, I went over to the West Bank, came back.
I loved your coverage of all that. You did great work.
Well, I up until very recently, and it was only until I talked to Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro, I had him on the show, and that is when I myself dropped the two-state solution idea. I was always
glad to see it too. I was so glad to see it.
Yeah, now I'm a one-stater. I really thought, no, you got to keep them separated. Yes, fine, the Jewish people can have their own nation. Okay, like they just have to live in peace. You have to give the Palestinians an actual sovereign nation, not just like a enclave that's still run by Israel. But now I'm like, no, the ideology is wrong. You cannot have an ethno-nation like this. It's just not right.
Nope.
But that's
it's interesting, because even if, and this is what's fascinating, Kim, let's say hypothetically a two-state solution was a good idea. Like, let's say, okay, that's a good idea. Israel's made it very clear that they're not doing that. They've made it very clear that they will not accept any existence of a Palestinian state whatsoever.
Right.
So why are we still even considering something that they've completely just said is not going to happen? So the fact that we're even, like, that people still talk about that, first of all, a two-state solution was never real.
Right.
That was always a Zionist talking point to sort of keep people quiet about complaining about what they're doing.
Right.
So they never had any intention of that ever happening. And if there's lots of books out there that show this information now, whether it's Elon Pappy or Rashid Khalidi or whatever it is, like there are books where this is very documented. There was never an intent to have a Palestinian state there once the Zionists were there.
So what do you think it is that makes Jews in America? So you were born and raised here. You never lived in Israel, except you did the 6-week stint there, just kind of a summer camp, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it when a Jewish person in America hears, well, we have to have this foreign nation as our homeland? Why don't then, if you're taught that, then logically, why don't all Jews move to the homeland?
A lot of them did for a long time. And what's interesting, and that was the goal. Let me tell you,
that was the goal. Yeah.
That was the goal. After I was there, I remember leaving there and I wanted to make Aliyah and go and serve in the IDF and all that. Like I was in that. I was going to graduate and go back and do that.
Sure.
Luckily, I learned a few things and decided that wasn't a good plan. But it's ingrained in us from such a young age that we are not safe without Israel.
So then when did you ever question then, why aren't we going?
Well, no, because so many people I know were going. So I knew.
But the people that go, okay, I get it, because that's what you're told. You're told, hey, this is our homeland.
Well, the goal is to eventually go there. Like my grandparents, all them, if you would ask them, They would love to be able to pick up and move there. Like it was sort of like that was their long-term plan for their next generations, would be for everyone to eventually get there. Now, in terms of like their socioeconomic conditions and what was really feasible is a whole other story.
Yeah.
But when you take a whole bunch of post-Holocaust Jews and fill them with more fear, that they now have an actual legitimate experience that backs that up. All right.
Right.
So the Jewish fear of genocide is very real.
Yeah.
That's not hyperbolic. It is real. And Jews have suffered that forever. Anti-Semitism is very, very real. And so it's easy to prey upon Jews in that way. And it's gotten lesser and lesser because now we have access to information. Like when I was little, I couldn't have Googled and had there was nobody on the ground over in Palestine showing me footage that would in any way negate what I was being told by the people that had the narrative. So I had no reason to question it. Now, no. And they're still trying to gaslight us, which is fascinating. They are gaslighting us like we're in the 90s and we can't just look at this online. It's just bizarre to me. I almost feel like saying to people like Debbie, the 90s called, man, they want their politics back.
And their hair.
Oh, good God. I don't know. Yeah, but it's like you cannot gaslight people that are watching something in real time.
Hey guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like this segment. Now, you might be wondering, this seems like it's part of a bigger show. You're right, it is. The full show is at KimIversonShow.com. So what you're watching is just a clip. And if you want to get the full experience, then you got to go to KimIversonShow.com. The show airs Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. That is where you can watch the full show. Here, you just get clips. So click on the link down below, go to the full show, enjoy. Otherwise, I'll see you next time right here. And be sure, once again, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.